Yeah, sorry, and the webinar is being recorded, and I can share it with you guys afterwards, just so you have it for yourselves. Apologies everyone for the delay this morning, and we just had some technical issues. I just see everyone is just joining there. I'll just give it a couple of moments. As I was just saying, just apologies, we had some technical issues this morning, but we're all resolved now and looking forward to getting started. Perfect. I see we've had a good amount join there, so I will get started. So just before we begin, I just want to apologize. I know we had a bit of a late start this morning. We just had some technical issues, the joys of working and organizing events remotely. Just to give everyone a hello and good morning, and welcome to our first Pro Bono Pledge NGO Pitch event. The objective of this event is to connect pledge signatories that have committed to undertaking pro bono work with NGOs and civil societies that have projects in need of legal expertise. We are delighted to be joined today by Liam Herrick from Irish Council for Civil Liberties, Bernadette Neville and Andrew Murphy from the Irish Foster Care Association, and Julia Leary from NASC Ireland. They will each provide us with an overview of their organisation and define the role in which pro bono can further assist the delivery of their objectives. At the end of all three presentations, attendees will be given the opportunity to ask questions to those presenting or to myself from a PILA perspective. Without further ado, I will now hand over to Liam Herrick from ICCL for his presentation.
Thanks, Danielle, and good morning, everybody. I'm going to try PowerPoint, so hopefully this will work. Here we go. Okay, can you see that, Danielle?
Yeah, you're all good, Liam.
Great. Good morning, everybody, and it's great to be with you here this morning. My name is Liam Herrick. I'm the Executive Director of the Irish Council for Civil Liberties. And just a rider in advance, I've had a sneak preview of Julie's PowerPoint, which is far more glossy and professional looking than my own. But I hope I'll be able to get some of the messages across. I just want to say a little bit this morning about who we are, what we do, and the areas in which we are currently benefiting from pro bono support, and which we hope that we might be able to expand that relationship in the future. The first thing about who we are, and many of you will be familiar with our work, the Irish Council for Civil Liberties is an old independent human rights organisation set up in 1976 by Kader Asmal, who went on to be a minister in the South African government, Mary Robinson, and the late Donald Barrington. It was inspired by the civil rights movement in the United States and in Northern Ireland, the international human rights system, which it's been very closely engaged with over the years, and the struggle for equality and defence of the rule of law, specifically in Ireland. We are networked internationally, including as members of the International Network of Civil Liberties Organisations, along with organisations like the ACLU. So our work is very much Irish focused, but we are very much networked and informed by the global human rights movement. Today, we have 13 staff. We have a board made up of academic experts, practicing lawyers, and leaders from civil society. We are fully independent and always have been of government. We don't take any government funding. That's been a core principle of ICCL since we were set up. And we are funded then by international and national foundations, grants, EU research projects, and by members of the legal professions in particular, and a particular cohort of supporters that we call the Friends of ICCL. So what do we do? The areas in which we work, I think it's fair to say that the driving inspiration behind the establishment of ICCL in 1976 was concerns about policing in Ireland and the use of emergency powers, violations of the rights of suspects. And Garda reform has been a core area of work for us over the last 45 years. We do a wide range of work in relation to procedural rights. That includes work on fair trial rights, judicial reform, which is very topical at the present, and also strong work in terms of victims' rights, and we were driving force behind the ratification of the Victims Directive into Irish law. We have worked in emergency powers, both to do with the earlier emergency period and the ongoing use of the Special Criminal Court, and more recently, all of the various rule of law and liberties concerns around COVID legislation for mandatory hotel quarantine, surveillance apps, and the use of police and fines with regard to movement. Censorship, unsurprisingly, has been a core area of work. Women's rights has been at the center of our work since we were established. We were centrally involved in the various referendums on abortion, women's reproductive rights, and divorce over the years. On LGBT rights, ICCL was one of the first organizations in Ireland to adopt a position in favor of the decriminalization of homosexuality. And we were one of the 3 lead organizations in the referendum for marriage equality. A growing area of work over the last 20 years has been in relation to surveillance and data protection, and we're currently leading a program of strategic litigation against the micro-targeting and ad tech industries and their violations of data rights. And we also have programs of work on issues such as the right to protest and freedom of association. So it's a very, very broad spectrum of issues. This mosaic kind of gives a little bit of a flavor of the types of things and places you're likely to see us. There's a picture there of Mary and Kader at the first meeting of ICCL in 1976. Some of our submissions to the United Nations, submissions to the Oireachtas. We run a Human Rights and Film Award in conjunction with Dublin International Film Festival, regularly before the Oireachtas, regularly in the Irish media, and increasingly in the international media for our work on data protection. We take part in protests, conferences, seminars, and so on. So it's just a snapshot, really, of the types of places you're likely to see ICCL. In terms of the types of pro bono support we've had, I think we would break them into 2 categories. The first is organizational. We are a professionally run organization. Compliance is a hugely important principle for us, meeting the highest standards of governance. And we have benefited from pro bono support in a wide range of areas over the last couple of years. One, for example, was during the repeal referendum, where we commissioned to put up a mural in our office window and ended up in a process of litigation with Dublin City Council around advertising. It's just a taste of the kind of bizarre and unusual ordinary legal work that an organization like us might encounter. But we've also had support around compliance issues, around employment law, restructuring and redundancy questions, and making sure we had best practice employment policies within the organization. And on things like translation, landlord and tenant, we've also had the benefit of legal support and advice from firms. And then I suppose in the operational area and the programs of work that we do, we have had pro bono support in the drafting of Know Your Rights guides to make human rights accessible and explainable to the public. We've had research on emerging areas which we're looking to explore and get into, particularly around legislation. We have had pro bono support to support our involvement with the legislative process, and sometimes even to draft model legislation where we're pushing for law reform. We are interested in the coming years to explore, as we expand as an organization, we've doubled in size in the last 3 years, the potential for legal clinics in the kind of areas where members of the public come to us, particularly on issues about the engagement with the police, where we think there's a gap, and also in terms of how we manage referrals from members of the public that come to us. Very often people who have been through a lot of other state and civil society agencies looking for remedies and relief end up with us as a port of last resort, and we'd like to be able to do more for those people. And finally, we are expanding a program of work on strategic litigation before the Irish courts, before some other European courts in the Netherlands and in Germany, and also we regularly would make amicus submissions to the European Court of Human Rights, all areas where we would like to strengthen our capacity. There's some final details, and I'll be very happy to take comments from you, but I would maybe just say finally that the area of our work that's expanding the most, I think, at the moment is in relation to data rights and privacy. And this has been challenging for us in terms of forging pro bono partnerships, because we're really about taking on Google, Facebook, and other large technology companies. And we know that that is a challenge for firms. But we have found ways in pre-legislative, pre-litigation areas where particular legal problems have been identified and we've been able to get support. So that's a quick rush through the type of work we're engaged in, and I'd be delighted to engage with you on any questions you might have.
Thanks a million, Liam, for your presentation. We'll have, if everyone just wants to, any questions or any comments they have for Liam, to hold them until all presenters have gone through their presentations. We'll have a short Q&A session at the end. And I will now invite Bernadette Neville, who's going to present on behalf of the Irish Foster Care Association.
Okay, thanks Danielle for that. I'm going to share my screen if that's okay.
Yeah, I think Liam's screen, possibly your screen, Liam, may still be sharing at the minute. There we go.
Okay, I'll give it a try there. Now, let's see. Now, let me know if it's not.
Yeah, no, that's perfect.
Great. Okay, delighted to be here with everyone this morning. My name is Bernadette Neville. I'm the National Service Manager with the Irish Foster Care Association. So I suppose similar to Liam, I'll walk you through the nature of the work we do, and I suppose what we're interested in developing in terms of a provision for our foster carers. So the Irish Foster Care Association, we're now 40 years in existence. This year's our 40th birthday. And we're a national organisation that's about supporting foster families and the wider fostering community. So we have a reach out as well, not only to foster carers, but to academics, to students, to social workers. So our membership base is quite broad. And I suppose we're in the business of advancing and promoting what we would call best practice in foster care. And how we do that through providing a number of pillars of support to our members, learning opportunities, and we have a strong advocacy service as well. So our vision in terms of what it is that we are aiming to achieve and promote within the fostering community is to really increase the profile of fostering. So we very much believe in a society where the importance of fostering is recognised, where the importance of fostering is valued, across the whole kind of spectrum of frameworks in which foster carers look after children and in which policymakers make decisions around fostering. And really then, I suppose, core to the work that we do, we're about ensuring that every child and promoting that every child that is in foster care grows up in a safe and caring family. So just to give you a sense, because I suppose I'm conscious maybe some of you mightn't be familiar with the whole foster care system and the profile of children that are looked after within the foster care system. So as of March this year, there was 5,338 children in foster care. Now, this can be made up of individual children and sibling groups. So there are brothers and sisters, sibling groups that come into care. And thinking in terms of the reasons why children come into care, that there's clear issues at home. Children have experienced neglect. Children have experienced abuse. Their early childhoods are quite traumatic for children. They don't live in safe homes where their needs are being met. And a decision is made then to bring the children into care and place them with foster carers. So we're talking about children, maybe young babies, right up to 18, being placed in the care system and being looked after by a range of different types of foster families. So what we do know is within the Irish context, we have a heavy reliance on foster care as the main form of alternative care for children. So over 90% of children that are in care are placed with foster carers. Within Ireland, we have in around 4,000 foster families. So these are families that have gone through an assessment process, they've gone through a training process, and they are now looking after these children, being supported then by a wraparound care team. Within IFCA, obviously, our members are predominantly foster carers. We support them. We work with stakeholders such as TUSLA and the department in advancing best practice around foster care. And just, I suppose, to kind of make a quick note in terms of the reality of foster care for foster carers. You can imagine looking after someone else's child, a child who's experienced quite traumatic early life experiences is immensely challenging for foster carers. And working within a care system, working within a care team, again, brings its own challenges. Equally, foster carers are very much located within a particular framework. So their roles and responsibilities are very defined by regulations, legislation, directions from the court, and the national standards. So it's a very complex area, and all these, I suppose, the players on the field very much can influence the day-to-day task of fostering. We know foster carers work closely with guardian ad litems, they work with the Gardaí, we've got social workers, birth parents. So at times it can be a very tricky territory to navigate. And what can add to that then is when matters are in front of the court, and there's directions around family contact, there's directions around the services that the child is required to receive. And again, that will influence and dictate how the children are to be cared for by the foster carers. So navigating the whole legal world can be a minefield for foster carers, and understanding how some of those directions then are to be kind of played out in how they care for children, again, it is a challenge. I suppose, sadly, one of the realities for foster carers is an allegation or a complaint being made against them. And at times that can end up in front of the courts as well. So I suppose within our organisation, we provide a lot of support to foster carers around an allegation or a complaint being made against them. So again, I suppose that brings another dimension into caring for children who are quite vulnerable, who have come from quite traumatic home care histories and homes where maybe their needs weren't met. So then I suppose that points to the level of support that we provide to our members and to the foster carers. So we have a number of different pillars. So we've got a national helpline service, and this is open to the public. So this is available to anyone who has a general inquiry around fostering. So sometimes we receive queries just around the general assessment process, maybe applying for a passport for child in care, to more, I suppose, more complicated issues around enhanced rights, around moving from fostering to adoption. So again, I suppose this is the helpline is very much kind of front of house for us. For those families then that come to us with much more complicated scenarios, for example, they have an allegation or complaint being made against them, we have a national advocacy service. And that service, I suppose, provides a high level of support to foster carers to navigate maybe the matters that are arising in court, to navigate issues that are arising with TUSLA, and a lot of foster carers need that one-to-one support to walk the walk and to follow, I suppose, the issues that are arising and to understand what's being asked of them. And I suppose just a point, obviously we do have a number of advocates that provide that advocacy service, but we don't have any staff member that would be legally trained. And we get a considerable amount of queries that relate to kind of legal issues impacting on foster carers, impacting on how they do the day-to-day care of children. We also offer, I suppose, support through learning and development. So we have a number of kind of training opportunities for foster carers, because again, I suppose our thinking around trauma, our thinking around what happens to children when they come into care has really grown in the last 10, 20 years. And we're about, I suppose, equipping foster carers with that knowledge so that they can develop the skills necessary to look after the children. And then regionally, we have branches and we have hubs which provide an opportunity for foster carers to come together and get support from each other. And again, they also provide us with opportunities to go in and deliver particular training as well. So they're great contact points with our members. But just, I suppose, to kind of translate that down into a sample of what we see coming through the helpline into advocacy, and the level of support that we offer. So I'm just thinking of a lady that would have contacted the helpline, would have been a foster carer a number of years ago, came onto the call, very distressed, was now saying that she had been informed that a child that she had previously cared for was now making an allegation against her. So any issues in relation to an allegation go straight into our advocacy service and are picked up by one of our advocates. So we would have supported her through the investigation process, because there is a standardized, there is a policy that TUSLA follow in terms of processing allegations. So we would have supported her to understand that and go through the process, and how best to represent herself and how best to engage in that process. So shortly after the allegation was concluded, she was then contacted by the Personal Injuries Board and was told that a civil claim for compensation had been made against her by the child and now adult that had been in her care. So again, obviously at that point, she was advised to go and seek out additional legal advice. So, and I suppose this is then where the complexity of fostering really hits home. So then I suppose she had to go about making inquiries from TUSLA in terms of the legal supports that she could avail of, the legal advice, the insurance. And again, I suppose at that point, very much kind of hitting a bit of a wall in terms of what she could access. There's huge ambiguity around what foster care, the safeguards and protections that foster carers can receive from TUSLA, particularly around civil matters. So we've obviously continued to support her, to communicate what it is that she needs, to seek clarity around what she can be afforded. And even at this point in time, we're still at a point where that hasn't been remedied. There's still a lot of unknown around what she can avail of in terms of insurance and legal advice. And obviously that is a huge stressor for many of the foster carers, navigating that and looking for those protections and finding really that they're not there when they go for them. So obviously, look, this is a lady we will continue to support in order to move things on. So what we're looking for in terms of what might enhance our current support and service provision are, first of all, online education sessions. We've very much heard from our members that they, I suppose, continue to come back to us querying directives from the court, querying the legal framework in which they operate, looking for guidance on how to navigate even applying for enhanced rights. And we really feel that actually if we had a menu of online education sessions that we could provide to foster carers, that would really enhance their ability, their capacity and their confidence to navigate that legal system. And equally, I think would enhance our service, our knowledge base in terms of how we would signpost foster carers and how we would support them through the process. As an agency, we're often asked for our views on particular kind of policy changes, for policy papers, and definitely I suppose our feeling would be that if we were able to build up our legal understanding, to have access to legal opinion, that actually our feedback to TUSLA, to the department, would be greatly enhanced. And obviously then that's going to benefit our members, our foster carers, who are day to day looking after these children. So it's really, I suppose, strengthening our service provision, strengthening what we can offer to foster carers so that they're on a much better footing in terms of looking after children and navigating those really complex relationships and frameworks in which they operate. So that's the Irish Foster Care Association. And look, I'm very happy to take myself and Andrew to take questions later on. Okay, thanks, Danielle.
Many thanks, Bernadette, for your presentation, and we'll now be joined by Julie O'Leary from NASC Ireland. Yeah, I can see your screen perfectly, Julie, just in case you're wondering.
Oh, and I was still on mute. So now we're ready to go. Thanks very much, Danielle, and thanks to everybody who's attending this morning. My name is Julie O'Leary, and I'm the manager of the Advocacy Service in NASC, the Migrant and Refugee Rights Centre. So we're an NGO based in Paul Street in the middle of Cork City. We were founded just over 20 years ago, so we have a long track record of working in the area. And we now have a number of different supports which allow us to provide kind of a holistic support to migrants and to refugees in the Cork area. So I suppose the different projects that we have, there's our advocacy service, where we provide information and we provide direct advocacy on a whole range of immigration, protection law, direct provision and citizenship issues. And outside of that, we have a number of other projects in the organisation that we will all work together to provide that support. So we have 2 social work-led projects for women and for young people, and our social workers support them throughout the immigration process and with issues around education, integration, housing and things like that. We do a lot of policy work on a national level on issues of importance. So we would have been highly involved in the recent white paper on the ending of direct provision. Our CEO, Fiona Finn, sat on the day group that did the work that led up to that report, and we'll be continuing to work on it to hopefully see progress in the months and in the years to come. And then we have our community sponsorship project. So we were the first organisation in Ireland to pilot the community sponsorship model that allows a community group to come together, to do fundraising, to source housing, and then to directly sponsor a refugee family to be resettled into their community. So that's been hugely successful. We've a number of families already living in the community and settling in well. And we have a recent family just arrived to Ovens in County Cork from Lebanon, so a Syrian family. They were met at the airport by their new neighbours. They were brought to their house and they have a real good support network around them. So I suppose working throughout those projects gives us a whole number of ways to support people throughout the refugee process and the other issues that come up. So I suppose the different types of work that my team on the advocacy service do is direct provision outreach clinics. And this would be often where we might meet a client for the first time. So somebody that's recently arrived in Ireland, that's applied for refugee status, and they're living in direct provision in a centre in Cork City or County. So we might meet them first at that point, and we might assist with an application for a labour market access permission. So the work permit that's now available to anybody that's in the asylum application process. We also have good links to different other services in the Cork City and County region, so we can refer people to English classes or to other supports that they might be needed. So that person might then be granted their refugee status, and they'd come back to us because they want to apply for their family members. So anyone who's granted refugee status or subsidiary protection in Ireland has a close to automatic right to apply for their spouse and for their children that are under the age of 18. So we'd go through that process with them. We'd assist them in their interactions with the Department of Justice, with obtaining the correct documents. Sometimes DNA tests have to be arranged, and we go through that process with them until the permission is granted. When their family members arrive, we can provide support around PPS numbers, access to services, and then we might refer them to one of our social work projects for help with schools and other things that come with settling into Ireland. And then as time goes on, we continue to support people with the bureaucracy that comes with day-to-day life as a migrant in Ireland. So I don't know if there's anyone on the call that's not an EU citizen, but there's a lot of red tape, there's a lot of form filling, and we help people with that. And then finally, we might help somebody with their application for naturalization as an Irish citizen. And that's nearly kind of the culmination of, you know, their journey with NASC or their work with NASC, because I suppose applying for Irish citizenship and being granted an Irish passport really represents security for people, and it does make life that much easier, and it's a huge relief to everybody when their Irish passport might be granted. Outside of that, then we help with all kinds of other immigration applications. So for spouses of Irish nationals, for family members of EU nationals, we'd advise on work permits, and then we'd advise on other kind of rights and entitlements for non-EU citizens and EU citizens living in Ireland. So we'd assist our clients with interacting with a whole range of bodies. So the Department of Justice, social welfare offices, housing authorities, SUSI grants, where we've had huge issues recently. And we, similar to the previous speaker, we provide information, and then in other cases, we can provide a more high-level support and advocacy work to assist people in getting the right result. So that's kind of the picture of the wide range of work we can do. It's extremely busy. I suppose as an organization as a whole, we probably work with about 1,500 individuals each year. Our advocacy service would deal with about 3,000 queries each year, and we've continued to deal with that number of people through COVID, working remotely, and thankfully we're now back in our office and we're kind of working on an appointment only basis. So I suppose we've had really good outcomes from working with PILA previously, and largely that's been around the provision of advice or representation for our clients on cases that come up. So we're not a law centre, you know, we don't have solicitors working for us, so there's only so far that we can take things. And as I'm sure some of the people on this call know, sometimes the decision making or the administrative processes that we might be dealing with can leave a lot to be desired. So we may work with a client throughout the process of their application, whether that's an application for a visa for a child that might be living in another country, whether it's an application for a residency permission here. And if at the end of that process, there's issues with the outcome, we would then refer to PILA, and we've had some good successes in getting advices and opinions from barristers, and then going on to get representation when needed from solicitors' firms. So that's something that's really been really useful to our clients, because we can really assure them that, you know, they're getting quality quality advice and quality representation through PILA, rather than kind of leaving them at the mercy of saying, oh, this is as far as we can take things, you have to go now and you have to source your own private solicitor. And clearly most of our clients wouldn't have the means to fund that, and therefore would be hugely grateful for the work that PILA does in kind of linking us to people that, you know, are able to provide that help and provide that application. So there's a few different things that we'd like to, I suppose, see more involvement in, that we'd like to work more with PILA and with the signatories to the pledge in kind of the coming months and in the coming years. Legal research is an area for us that we'd like to expand. I suppose we deal with a huge amount of different issues and different things that come up, whether that's, you know, issues regarding birth certificates for Irish citizen children, issues regarding delays, interpretation of EU regulations regarding family members of EU citizens that are applying to come to Ireland. And we'd love to be able to refer those issues just for a short piece of research that would then arm us in our dealings with the department, so that would make our applications stronger and would make us confident in what we're you know, doing to assist the client in supporting them throughout the application process. Another project we're working on at the moment is work on delayed applications. So the department has really been hit, of justice has really been hit by COVID, and we're seeing huge delays in a lot of applications, sometimes for no particular reason. And I suppose what's very frustrating for us is that we can be writing to the department saying, we've sent you everything, can we have an update? Can we have an update? And we get very little response. And in applications that mean a huge amount to our clients, that's very frustrating. So for instance, I had a family reunification application for a lady from Nigeria that was granted refugee status about 2 years ago at this stage. We had applied for her 14-year-old daughter who was living in Nigeria. She hadn't seen her in a number of years. And as a refugee, she can't go back to Nigeria to visit her. There was a small delay in getting the passport, but we had the passport sent in by November 2020. So from my perspective, we had ticked all of the boxes. We had submitted all of the relevant documents in November 2020. And after that, we heard nothing. So we came up to June, July this year, and it's really just so difficult for somebody in that situation. When I'm saying to them, look, I'm not getting anything back off them, there's nothing we can do. You know, I know we've submitted all the documents, but they just don't seem to be responding. We referred her through a solicitor who took on the case. He sent a letter, and surprise, surprise, a result came in and an outcome came in within a number of weeks. So that's obviously frustrating for me, but it's a great outcome for the client when we know that we can refer them, and that letter from a different person will have the desired effect and will bring that around. So citizenship is another area where we're seeing huge delays, and that has a big impact on people as well. And many of our clients would be waiting 3, 4, 5 years for answers on their citizenship applications. And we've had some good success recently in referring cases where the delay has been over 2 years. And again, we've gotten fast answers for clients once a letter has been sent from a solicitor that might be willing to take on the case. So if anyone was interested in, I suppose, speaking more to us about that, I'd be delighted to chat about it. None of them are particularly onerous applications, and in a lot of cases, it's only a few letters that are required and nothing further is needed after that, that it gets the result that the client has been waiting for so long and makes such a huge difference to them and to their family. And so the last thing, I suppose, is that volunteering either in person in our Cork office or engaging with Danielle in the next few months is going to be really important. So it's going to be a busy December for the migrant NGO sector, because we had the announcement yesterday about the Afghan Humanitarian Admission Programme, which is going to allow Afghan nationals living in Ireland to apply for their family members to come to Ireland. That's going to open in December. So we're going to have a huge amount of people that want to make applications, queries, and a lot of time is going to have to go into putting those applications together. I suppose in the first few weeks after the Afghanistan events unfolded, we had about 100 different queries within about 10 days for people looking to make applications for their family members. We've had some successes already, but many, many more people will be hoping to benefit from this scheme in December. And if there's anyone Cork based on the call and they wanted to link in with us to assist us with those applications, that would be fantastic. We'd be delighted to have the help. But for anyone in any other part of the country, I think we'll be hoping Danielle might assist us in kind of coordinating and making sure that as many people benefit from that scheme as possible. And at the same time in December, we're expecting to have the opening of the regularization scheme for undocumented migrants. So this is a long-awaited scheme that's going to allow people that have been in Ireland for a certain period of time, who don't have a residency permission to be here, but nonetheless, they may be here, they may be working, they may have children in school, to apply to have their status regularized. And we're hoping that will benefit as many people as possible, and that it'll be kind of a speedy and kind of well administered kind of scheme. And we've already had some discussion with Danielle about coordinating that, and again making sure that, you know, we don't duplicate work, and that we can assist as many people as possible with those two schemes. So I suppose if you were interested in assisting, those would be the two that I would be asking you to help with, because both of them will be really important to the people that are applying. There will be hundreds, if not thousands, of people around the country looking for assistance with this, and the outcomes will make a huge difference to individuals and to their families around the country. And we'd love to have your involvement. you know, there's other migrant NGOs in Cork or in Dublin and in Limerick. We can provide training. You know, we have a lot of experience in working with the department and working with these different applications, and we would just be more than delighted to have more people on board, especially with the busy few months that we have coming up. So that's all for me, and we're happy to take any questions or to chat to anybody afterwards. Thanks very much for joining us all this morning.
Thanks so much, Julie, for your presentation, and thanks to all that presented here this morning. I'll now open up if anyone has any questions for the presenters. So you can either use the Q&A box, or you can just raise your hand using the raise hand function. No, I don't think we've any. Oh, we do have a question. Yeah, Caroline, who's Pro Bono Associate for Arthur Cox, just has a question there.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much, Danielle, for organising this really helpful event, and nice to see you all this morning. Thanks very much for your presentations. I suppose my main question is just in terms of next steps, because we've heard lots of ideas about how we might be able to help with our pro bono practices, and lots of good potential there. So do we just kind of sit tight and wait to see opportunities pop up in the portal, Danielle, and take it from there, or should we reach out to the organisations?
Yeah, so there's kind of two ways. So all organisations that presented here today, so ICCL, IFCA and NASC, will be given an opportunity to submit specific pro bono referrals, which will then go up on the portal. And the other way is if any organisations, any particular law firms here today are interested in setting up, I suppose, initial conversations of how their pro bono practice might assist those organisations, they can get in touch with me directly. And I can kind of help build that relationship between the organisation and the law firm. So if anything sparked your interest, Caroline, you can just send me an email afterwards and I can arrange that for you.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Thank you.
No problem. Are there any other questions there? Perfect. I don't think we've any other questions. So just to finish up, I'd like to say a big thank you to our presenters here this morning. This was the first Pro Bono Pitch event under the Pro Bono Pledge Ireland. So thank you all for coming on board, and I do apologise again for the slight delay at the start, just we had some technical difficulties. So yeah, a big thank you to Liam from ICCL, both Bernadette and Andrew from the Irish Foster Care Association, and then Julie from NASC. All attendees who joined this morning, a big thank you for coming along this morning to this event. And as I said there, if you have any questions for the organisation or something sparked your interest, do feel free to email danielle.curtis@flac.ie. I'll be sending out the presentations anyway to all of those that attended here this morning. And just feel free to come back to me if you have any questions for the organisations, or if something they might have mentioned might have sparked your interest of how you might be able to assist them. And yeah, a big thank you, and thanks so much again for joining.
Great, thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you.